processes which offer the Palestinians nothing but a kingdom of illusions with you, family in charge. Today we're here to say enough is enough. Now many people have drawn a historical parallel between the Gaza ghetto, where 1.5 million Palestinians are caught in a trap, like rats in a trap, in the biggest open-air prison on earth, and the Warsaw ghetto of the Second World War. But perhaps this historical parallel was made most concretely, most powerfully, by one of my great heroes, Marek Edelman, the last surviving leader of the armed Jewish resistance of the Warsaw ghetto, of the uprising which in 1944 saw Jews dig tunnels, fire rockets, fight for their freedom by any means necessary, choose to die on their feet rather than live on their knees. And Marek Edelman, who was one of the leaders of that inspirational uprising in 2002, after seeing a man who was then often described as the Nelson Mandela of Palestine, Palestinian resistance leader Marwan Barghouti, in chains, in a kangaroo court at a show trial in Tel Aviv, after seeing the Operation Defensive Shield in 2002 and the rape and razing of whole Palestinian cities like Jenin and Nablus. In 2002, this Jewish resistance leader wrote an open solidarity letter to the military commanders of the Palestinian resistance. Because for him, to the Jewish resistance is not the Israeli state that practices apartheid and racism and represses human rights. For him, to the Jewish resistance is the Palestinian resistance. And I salute him for saying it. Now I think we're here today because the barbarian is already waiting, poised at the gate. On the borders of Gaza, the stormtroopers of apartheid Israel are massing, preparing and ready for another massacre. So what we do now, in the coming hours, in the coming minutes even, here and around the world, could be decisive in stopping another war and stopping bloodshed. What we do here today and elsewhere could save lives. I think it's really important that we know who's who in this conflict, that we know who is David and who is Goliath, who is the oppressor and who is the oppressed, because often in the fog of war, all kinds of facts can get lost. We know that the first casualty of war is often the truth. So we have to remember that at the beginning of this month, of the last year, over 70 Palestinians have been massacred in Gaza. In the same period, not a single Israeli had been killed by the Palestinian resistance. But what's happening is really a war crime within a war crime within a war crime. Because this whole episode happens within the greater context of an illegal siege and blockade of Gaza, a savage siege that denies people the right of freedom and the right to live ordinary lives. And I think really what we're seeing is a cheap publicity stunt by a cheap Israeli politician, Netanyahu, trying to win an election campaign with Palestinian blood that is absolutely contemptible. I just want to end by saying that we have always said in the Stop the War Coalition that the only solution to the question of Palestine is revolution from one end of the Middle East to the other. We've seen what we call the Arab Spring. Didn't begin last year. It was a struggle that was over a decade in the making. In fact, many say that the first shoots of this spring was in 2000, when the Middle East erupted in demonstrations in solidarity with the 2000 Palestinian Intifada. But as people said, the context now is different. This is not 2009, when Gaza was completely defenseless against the fourth largest military in the world. This is 2012, when Gaza is bordered by a very powerful neighbor, the Egypt. Egypt could be a powerful ally of the Palestinian people. And we know that Morsi, the current leader, has gone further than Mubarak in delivering solidarity, but words are cheap. We have to say it's not enough. So today, we call upon the heroic people of Gaza, the heroic people of Egypt, the courageous people of Egypt, the millions who took to the streets last year in Egypt to The people who occupied Tahrir Square for 18 days last year in Egypt, the workers who waged strike after strike in the dying days of the regime to bring down Mubarak. We call you to open up the gates of Rafah, to halt the flow of natural gas to Israel, to tear up the Camp David Accord, to defend your Palestinian brothers and sisters. We're not in the Middle East, we're in Britain, where we're ruled by a public schoolboy, junta of billionaires, determined to wage war on the poor at home and abroad. These great crimes could not take place without the complicity of our government, who aids, who trades, who arms, who gives diplomatic cover, who backs Israel to carry out its crimes against the Palestinians. So I think we have to be very clear. To free Palestine, we must first free ourselves. I just want to conclude by saying, we're all here because we want peace. Everyone wants peace in the Middle East. No one wants to see this conflict. But I think one thing we know to be true, there can be no peace between justice and oppression. There can be no peace between occupied and occupier. There can be no peace between colonized and colonizer. There can only be eternal struggle. We have the roadmap to peace. We have the roadmap for the last 6 decades. It's the roadmap which reads, end the occupation, lift the siege, let the refugees return home, let Palestine be free. That's the only roadmap. So let justice roll down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. And so on behalf of Cardiff Stop the War Coalition, I'd like to pledge our continuing and never-ending solidarity with the Palestinian people. Today, tomorrow, till liberation, till victory. As Ray said, there may be a demonstration next week, and we may have to book coaches to open up the second front of the Palestinian resistance in London, lay siege to the Israeli embassy. So if everyone can leave their contact details with me so that we can pass on information about these coaches. I just want to say, today on the West Bank and Gaza Strip, they're trying to make Palestine into a prison. For more than 60 years, they've been trying to make Palestine into a prison. We'll smash that prison. Victory to the Intifada.